Hey, welcome back to Family Health and Hustle. Appreciate you joining the show today. Today, we're going to talk about a number of things. But this week was kind of a big week for me. So, last week I spoke about my health. And as I mentioned, I'm pretty healthy. Again, I'm not fit necessarily, but I would consider myself healthy. I don't have, a lot of health problems. I don't get sick very often. Although after having my two kids, my two little ones right now, I do get sick a little more often. I think it's just because they like to bring some stuff home with them when they're out and about or on the playgrounds and different things. They tend to touch everything and bring that home with them. So prior to having two kids, I was rarely sick. But one thing I did forget to mention is, I do have one little thing. So I am the only one in my family that actually has some thinning hair. And I know that's kind of weird to bring that up here, but this week was a big week for me. Monday was a big day because I said, you know what? I still have some hair. I could still rock this, but why not just shave this bad boy off? And my wife, bless her heart, is just like, no, it looks fine. Like, don't mess with it. And my response is always, well, that's because you're shorter than I am. And so, of course, it looks good. You can't see it. And I took a picture with my daughter, and I don't know. It was not a good angle, and I was like, you know what? No, I want to try just shaving this bad boy off for a while. And so despite my wife's pushback, she said, fine, but you better never shave your beard. You need some hair. And the funny thing is my wife actually does not like hair. I feel bad for her because she doesn't like hair except, on someone's head and on their face, beard. And who she married was someone who is just, I don't know if this is too much information, but just, I'm a hairy guy. I got hairy arms, a little bit on the back, some chest hair, stuff like that. I mean, and so, of course, I am probably the opposite of what she was originally looking for because, the head hair is thinning, probably because of all the stress I've gone through. I don't know. But I'm the only one in my family that has had that. And so, I said, sorry, I'm shaving this bad boy off. She said, fine, but you better never shave that beard. And I said, oh, okay, all right, I'll keep the beard, which I don't mind. I actually like the beard. So Monday I did that. So if you follow us online or any of the social media accounts, you'll probably notice some of the new videos that have come out. I'm a little. Well, I'm bald. Let's just put it that way. I shaved it all the way down, basically bicked it. So we'll see how it goes. I told my wife, I said, look, I'm not ashamed. Some people might be ashamed of this, but, maybe in the future I'll just get like a hair transplant or something. I'll thicken that bad boy up and I'll grow it right back out. And some people might be ashamed of that. I don't care. If that's what I end up doing, then that's fine. But I'm okay with the no hair for a little while. So thought I would share that with you. Big day, big week. And I'm meeting with some clients today for my day job. And they haven't seen me yet, so we'll see what they say. But the other thing I wanted to mention too is, so we're trying to expand, and again, I always say we, but it's just me right now. I'm trying to expand on some social media platforms, taking a little more time building some stuff out. Instagram's our main platform right now that I'm trying to post on regularly, and then I'm exploring YouTube, doing some videos, and my issue with video, so I actually have a bunch of experience editing video in the past, and the reason I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, the reason I haven't explored YouTube too much is just because it takes some time to edit, but there's so many AI programs and things right now that can help with that. And quite frankly, if YouTube's not the main platform, what I was worried about is that I would commit to making a lot of videos and then I'd get busy and then it'd fall through the cracks. But since it's kind of a secondary one, I'm now playing with it, now exploring, posting some content on there. But the question is, if you have any ideas, any suggestions, where I'm filming, where I record the podcast, my home office, there's nothing pretty about it. I'll be honest. It's in the basement. There's not too much going on here. So I need some ideas as far as YouTube backgrounds go. If that's a big deal, I think it should be a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So if you have ideas of simple things I can do to spice up the what you see on the frame in the YouTube video, that'd be much appreciated. So, shoot me an email, anthony@familyhealthandhustle.com. Shoot that over to me. Shoot me some ideas, and I'll definitely give you a holler if I can make that work. But I'm not super creative. I'm not super handy, so that's the problem. I'm kind of working with limited abilities here. But I am looking for an option to try to make things a little more pleasing to the eye. But that is not what we came on to talk about today. We've talked about family. We've talked about health, and now I want to give you a little history of my hustle. I talk on social media a lot about finding that side hustle, and how important it is, and important to kind of balance that with everything else going on in your life. And I think, I just need to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from, some of my experiences. So I, of course, like most people, as I mentioned when I spoke about my families, I was raised in a very, modest household. Both my mom and my dad worked 9 to 5. I wasn't raised with this huge desire to, own a business. However, I did always have a desire to build a brand. And that kind of was discovered later. When I was younger, I always wanted to be an actor because I love performing, I love acting, I love making people laugh. And later on, I translated that into, I really enjoy giving people good experiences. And you can do that through a quality brand. But prior, starting out in life, I just wanted to be an actor. And so I just did what I thought I was supposed to do, and I got a regular job. My first job was at a pizza place. I worked there for almost 3 years, and I mostly applied there because a girl in my neighborhood that I later end up dating, she got a job there, and she said, "Hey, you should apply," and so I did, and I ended up working there forever, making $5.25 an hour after high school, and I'm pretty conservative with my money, and so that was fine back then, and quite frankly, that was normal back then. That was the average. The middle wage, I guess, or the minimum wage, I should say. So anyway, got a job at a pizza place, did that for a couple years, had a great time, got a lot of experience, talking with customers. I did everything from, cooking the pizza to working the registers. Those were kind of my main areas. And then I made one of the managers a little mad, and he put me on dish duty for a long time. So, that was fun. But anyway, so I bounced from that pizza place to another pizza place that was paying a little bit more. And by that time, I was almost 18, and I was waiting to turn 18 so I could get a job at a gym. I thought that'd be so cool. I'm 18 years old. I'll join a gym. That's a great job. I'll make a lot of money. I'll get fit. I'll, meet some ladies. All this stuff, and it ended up being a horrible job. I ended up working really late in the evening. At that time, I had some early morning classes. I had a class that I wasn't getting credit for, like towards graduation, but I really wanted to take it, and so it was at I think 6:30 or 7 in the morning. I had to be at school, and I was working at this gym. It was a 24-hour gym, and so I'd be working there, and the person that was supposed to show up at night would never show up, and so I'd end up leaving at 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was just a rough time. And then after that, I ended up getting a good job at a call center, making at the time, probably $17 an hour, which for me, having just graduated high school and not really even knowing what I wanted to do, and at that time, that was a good wage to have. You really didn't get that kind of wage if you didn't have a lot of experience. And I mentioned, I think in the health episode, that's where I kind of started having health, getting out of shape, because I just was making money. I was working at a call center. I wasn't doing outbound calls or inbound calls necessarily. I was actually a sub department for the accounting department. So I would do some work, and I'd solve some issues, and as far as commissions to field agents go, stuff like that. And I started drinking lots of soda and eating candy, and just, that's where my health started getting a little bit out of shape. But I actually ended up getting laid off from that job. And Well, let's be honest. It was like half layoff, half fired, and I say that because the company was starting to struggle and starting to downsize, and they just ballooned. They were making a lot of money at first, and then some. This was right around 2007, 2008, and so this is when there was issues in the housing market, and this company I was working for was selling a program that leveraged some housing products, we'll say, without getting into too much detail. But so I say laid off / fired because I had a manager who didn't care when I showed up. So I was supposed to be there, I think, at like 8 in the morning, and I always showed up at like 9ish. And then he got moved to a different department, and I got another manager who actually wanted me there on time. And then there was another gal who got hired that was like the friend of the manager, and she started causing some trouble. She'd make dirty jokes all the time at the workplace, and then one time I played along on the joke. It wasn't even that bad, but I just said something to contribute to a joke that wasn't the most appropriate, and she filed a complaint and tried to get me in trouble and all this stuff. And I remember being like, what is going on? And so then all of a sudden my manager was like, no, you have to be here at 8 o'clock. And at that time, like I said, I didn't have any structure to my life. I was just working, making some good money, and hanging out with my girlfriend till, 2 in the morning. And so I would show up late, and that was ultimately, they basically came to me and said, okay, it's, we're going to let you go. So that's why I say it's layoff / fired because I definitely was breaking some of the rules. I wasn't showing up when I was supposed to. But I say layoff because they were also laying off people at that time. So, I say layoff to make me feel a little better. But I'll be honest, at that time, 18, 19 years old, I didn't have the greatest, I don't want to say work ethic. I worked just fine, but it just was, I wasn't, on time. I was letting other external circumstances dictate my day, and just kind of, made it very difficult for me to stick to certain schedules, stuff like that. So after that, my parents actually decided to open up a restaurant. And so after that, I went and got a job at another real estate based place and was doing data entry, and that was just the worst. Oh man, it sucks so bad that their computers were like from the 90s. Their programs were, if you know what DOS is, it was like DOS based stuff. So it was just like all F commands and entering stuff. And that was the worst. That was like people were micromanaging the staff and coming from, that loosey-goosey schedule and getting in trouble because obviously I couldn't stick to the schedule. To that was very difficult because, they would manage, when you'd use the restroom. In fact, I had a manager one time, I had to use the restroom, and we only had one restroom, like one stall on that floor, that entire floor. And so I went, and it was occupied because there was like a gazillion people working there. And so I went to the second floor, and I used the restroom and came back. And when I came back, the screensaver on this just super old computer was still on. It wasn't on yet. So it would turn on after 5 or 8 minutes or something like that, or maybe 10 minutes, but no longer than 10 minutes. And the screensaver wasn't even on. And I'd come back to the desk, and this lady manager comes in and is like, "Where were you?" And I said, "Oh, I was using the restroom." And she said, "No, you weren't." Because she actually grabbed one of her little minions, this other guy who'd worked there for 50 years, who was making 30 cents more an hour than I was. He just dedicated his whole life to this place. And she actually got him and sent him into the bathroom looking for me. So that's the kind of micromanaging we were doing there, or they were doing to us there. And it just was a horrible job. So the only reason I stuck with it, because my parents, as I mentioned, were opening a restaurant, and they were building it out, and it just felt like it was taking forever. And I had to manage the restaurant, and so I was just waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, my actual direct manager really liked me, thought I did a great job, but the one that was micromanaging was kind of right above him. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. I said that bathroom thing was that was it for me. I can't. I would rather not have any money than deal with this anymore. And he tried to get me to stay and said, I'm sorry. You really are great at this job. Like, you could grow in this business, and blah blah blah. And I said, no, thanks. And so I ended up leaving. And I was raised religiously. I don't. I do my best to be nice to people, but and to not be vulgar. I don't use a lot of swear words in my day-to-day language, especially now that I have kids, and I don't want them picking up on some of that. But even back then, I didn't really, cuss a lot and stuff like that. But I definitely walked by this lady's cubicle. That was the other thing, is she had a giant cubicle. It's like 4 cubicles turned into 1 cubicle. And it was, you could see over it. I'm not that tall of a guy. I'm like barely 6 foot. And you could see over the wall of the cubicle. And she would always call that her office. And so all the time, throughout the couple months I worked there, she would be like, come into my office. And I got to the point where I just kept correcting her. I said, you mean your cubicle? And so this had been coming for a long time. There was some tension there. And again, she was someone that worked there for like 35 years. Was like not even probably more than the team lead, like a department lead or something. And and I just was looking at her like, how do you even have a life? Like, you're here, 8 to 5:30, and you've been doing this for more, double the time that I've been alive, basically. And you just look miserable, and I don't want to do this. And so anyway, I would hassle her a little bit that way too. But the day I left, I should say, I walked by her cubicle and just gave her a little. I gave her a little goodbye gesture. That's all I'm going to say. This is a family-friendly podcast, so I just did something that maybe was a little bit out of character for me, but I just wanted her to know, like, you're really an unpleasant person, and good luck working here for the rest of your life. And the crazy part to me, karma, I guess, but I found out later that company, again, because of the time and the struggles in the real estate business, because of the time and the real estate business, that company ended up laying off a bunch of those people. And at the time I was like, karma, because here she was dedicating her life to this business, just being a butthead to people underneath her. I was like, that's what goes around comes around. And I hate saying that, but I do believe in, karma, whatever you want to call it. I do believe that the more good you put out in the world, the more good that returns to you, but also negativity. If you put out negativity in the world, you're going to have some negativity that approaches you and comes around. And looking back at it now, like, I don't have any harsh feelings or anything, but at the time, that's how I felt. So I finally said no, I'm out of here, and it was still a couple months till my parents' restaurant opened, and my dad owned a little frozen dessert business. He sold Italian ice, and so I set up a little booth on like the corner where our restaurant was supposed to be, and I was selling that for a few hours a day, and I don't recall really ever making that great of money, but I tried. Once the restaurant opened up, that's what I was doing. I was the restaurant manager, and helping do all that stuff. That was looking back on it, I just didn't know anything. I knew how to be nice to customers. I was outgoing. I could talk to people, but as far as restaurant management, I knew nothing. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. And so later on down the road, my parents ended up closing the restaurant. It just wasn't working out. The location was not amazing, and we had a rough start because no one had run a restaurant before, and so it was a lot harder than I think we thought it was going to be. We made a lot of mistakes, and I think maybe we burned some people. And a side note, because of that, anytime a new restaurant opens up in the area that I live, I never go to it within the first couple weeks because that's their figuring it out time. And so I never go to it because I sympathize with that. Those first couple weeks were rough, trying to figure it out. And we probably burned some bridges in our business, but it is what it is. We learned a lot. So later on, they ended up closing that down, and I ended up getting a job at Chili's as a server, and that's actually where I met my wife. And I'll talk about that too in a future episode as I continue to give you a little backstory of where I come from. But that's where I met her, and I ended up working at Chili's for a while as a waiter. Again, enjoyed the interaction with the customers and talking to people and engaging customers. I just enjoy that. And but I didn't like the money up and down. The tips were all over the place. I'd come in one day and make $150 in 30 minutes, and then I'd work another day for 8 hours and make $90. Like it just was rough. And so I ended up leaving there and getting into I actually worked for a credit card company. And again, and the reason I say this, a lot of this story is just me bouncing around because I could never find something I was super happy in. And in this credit card company, like great company, to this day I say it is a great company. It just wasn't for me. So I worked there for a few months and I bounced again. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And after that, I thought, I really like restaurants. I did enjoy it. I just didn't like the money. And I found an opportunity to be a manager at a fast food restaurant. And so I said, okay, well, let's do this. It was new to the area that I lived at, and I knew it was going to be growing. And it did. I was able to jump in there and have a great time as like a shift leader for a while, and then they offered me my own store, and I jumped in there, and that changed the game because I went from, clocking in at a certain time, clocking out, to being responsible for that restaurant. And so I learned a lot. I learned, hiring, firing. I learned that sometimes as a manager, it's better to be a little more strict and respected than loosey-goosey, because that ends up not being a good thing for you. I had to, I was very reasonable with certain employees, thinking I was doing them a favor, being nice, and they would end up just kind of stabbing me in the back and taking advantage of it. And so at that point, it was a difficult lesson to learn, because the restaurant was open all throughout the day, closed at 10 o'clock, opened at 6 a.m. And during those off hours, there was like some baking and stuff that was being done. And so there's just constant problems where I had to be in at 2 a.m. helping with the bakers and just all kinds of stuff. And I learned a harsh lesson that, sometimes you got to come in and it might seem like you're being mean, but you just got to set the standard. You got to set the standard, set the expectation, and don't move away from it. And although some people are not going to like that, in fact, when you come in, as I did at the time, I bounced around through a couple restaurants because I was helping them get off the ground and fix some issues. I'd come in and say, this is what I expect. And if someone wouldn't meet it, unfortunately, I don't like firing people, but I would have to let people go. And people didn't like it, but they learned to respect you. And I think that's a big lesson for me to learn. And I hope for you as well, is whatever you're doing, don't just be tossed to and fro, because it is not genuine. I feel like people consider you fake if you're just kind of going from one thing to another thing as far as your opinions or your rules. If you're in a management position, set the rule and hold to it. And hey, I have had to fire people that I really, really liked and that were good employees, but they broke a rule that they knew they weren't supposed to. And I had to sit down and have that conversation. In fact, one guy, I said, why'd you do that, man? Like, now I have to let you go. After I left that fast food chain, I had another opportunity at another fast casual restaurant, and that's where I'm talking about. So this fast casual that sold some alcoholic beverages, and there's one employee, just awesome guy. I thought he was so funny, good hard worker. Everyone liked him. But we found a couple open beer cans in our walk-in fridge rather. And, I found out it was him. And I don't blame him for doing this, because the management before I had gotten there was so loose and goose, like they didn't care. And for me, I was trying to set the rule. Like, first of all, you can't just come in and take product that I'm responsible for. And second of all, you definitely can't take alcoholic drinks. And he was old enough. He was in his 20s. He was old enough to drink and everything, but I had to pull him aside and sit him down and say, dude, why'd you do that? And he was like, yeah, I know that's dumb. I just was, I wanted a drink. I didn't think it was a big deal. And I said, you're not supposed to do this. Like, I really like you, man. I'm sorry. I have to let you go. Like, you forced me to do this. And I did. And there's another time, a gentleman, a young kid, his this is actually probably the hardest one, is his father passed away. And I came to him and I said, hey, what do you need? Like, if you need a few weeks off, no problem. Like, you tell me what you need. And he said, no, I'm good. I need my hours. And so, he was working like 30 some hours or something a week. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yes, I'm for sure. I said, okay. So I schedule him his 30 hours. And when you're managing a restaurant, when someone doesn't show up, that's on you. That's on you as the manager. So he didn't show up. And I ended up having to work those 30 hours. And I came to him again. I said, hey, man, what the heck happened? He goes, I know, I'm sorry, struggling at home, all this stuff. And I said, okay, well, let me take you off the schedule for a few weeks, like no pressure. And he said, no, I need the hours. I said, okay, are you sure? Because last week I had to cover you. He says, sure, yes, I'm going to be there. And so I schedule him again. And again, he doesn't show up. And I end up having to work more hours. I end up having to have a harder work week because I'm covering him. And I approached him again and said, what is going on, dude? Like, listen, I know life is hard. I can't imagine what you're going through. Your father just passed away. Like, I can't imagine. And he was young enough where he was still living with his family. And so he had to help his family out. And I said, seriously, like, I'm not mad at you, but, I can't keep putting you on the schedule if you're going to be not showing up, because that makes it really hard for everyone. And there's some key positions. This particular restaurant was very tight on its budgets. And so it's not like we had an abundant staff at the time. Like, every person was important. And I gave him another chance. I said, seriously, no hard feelings. Like, take a few weeks, take a month, take a week, whatever you need. Just take some time. And he said, no, for real, I need to work. I'm so sorry. He gave me an excuse, all this stuff. And I said, okay, that's fine. Again, trying to be nice. So I put him back on the schedule. And again, for a third time, he didn't show up and he didn't work. And I had to let him go. That was very difficult for me. I pulled him aside and I said, I cannot imagine what you're going through. I am so sorry you lost your dad. But I also have to hold, the expectation. I cannot do this for you. I have given you every chance to succeed. And every time you have made you've made it harder on our business and on me, and you have failed your commitment. And I had to let him go. Now, I hope those who are listening aren't like, oh my gosh, this guy's such a jerk. This guy his dad passed away, all this stuff. And look, I'm with you. Had I heard that story, I'd have been like, geez. But, going through that and just having prior to that being taken advantage by so many people trying to be nice, like, I had to set that standard. And here's the thing is, if you make an exception to that standard, other people will see. And so if you try to hold someone else acceptable or to that standard, then you become a jerk because you're not consistent. So it's difficult. That's one of the, I didn't mean to start going down this rabbit hole, but that's one of the biggest things I've learned throughout my different careers is consistency, setting expectations and going through with them. So I end up, that fast casual restaurant, I end up having a manager placed over me who, kind of going along with what I said, was just very inconsistent. There's some days he was happy. There's some days he was mad. There was things that he was doing that, in my opinion, were hurting the business. And then he had the temper of a 5-year-old, worse than a 5-year-old. Actually, my 5-year-old doesn't act as bad as this individual did. And by the way, if you're listening out there and you know who you are, I like you as a person. I really did like you as a person, but come on, man. This guy would come in and just cuss everyone out, tell him he's gonna, kill him, and not like actually like strangle, but like he'd be so mad. He's like, I'm gonna kill this guy if he doesn't show up, that kind of talk. And he would just be losing it. And we used to do this brunch thing every Sunday, and we were notorious for running out of French toast. And so we would just, every week we'd like try to get that ready and get that prepared, because we did like bottomless French toast and stuff. And this manager would come in, something was going wrong. He would grab like the racks of French toast and chuck them in the back of the kitchen, and they'd all fall on the ground. And then we'd be like, well, crap, now we have even less French toast. Like he couldn't think. He just was furious. And then he would turn around and blame me because people weren't performing, but quite frankly, people just hated working there. And that's, that started to affect me. It had been something I had never experienced before. Having worked at the fast food place, all management, everything was very professional, but at this fast casual place, it was rough. But I learned a lot there as well. I learned everywhere I go, I try to learn. And even when I would let people go at some of these places, I would even tell them, I'd say, look, I understand you're upset. Again, usually I wasn't just letting people go. Like usually they had several chances, usually. And I would tell them, I'd say, look, I guess there's two ways you can look at this. Way one is you can leave here and you can be mad at me. And I don't blame you for that. You can be mad at me and upset, and it can be my fault, Or number two, you can leave here and try to learn something and go wherever you go next, learn from this and be better, and don't make that same mistake. And that's how I've tried to look at all these jobs is, okay, I'm going to leave and I'm going to learn and be better. Maybe some of this was my fault. Maybe it wasn't. But I'm gonna learn from it. And so all of these restaurants specifically, and the interactions I've had with people, whether I'm the one interacting or someone's interacting with me, like this particular manager, I try to look at that and say, okay, what is it that this individual did really well that I liked, that I would take with me, and I want to absorb that into me and become, start exercising or using that attribute. And what's these other things that I hope I'm never like? So that job started getting kind of rough, and so this particular company had kind of like a network of companies, and the owner of that fast casual restaurant came in and he said, I don't think you're a restaurant. You seem like the restaurant guy. The restaurant thing is going to burn you out, and so come work for one of these other companies. And it was a financial coaching company. Now I'm not qualified to coach, financially, but I came in and was really just helping promote some of their programs. I bounced around to customer service, to do some video editing. Like at the time, it's funny looking back at it because I was good at talking with people and interacting with people, but I didn't really have any marketable skills. What I mean by that is like on my resume, what am I going to put? Like really good at talking to people, and I had that issue for many years where that was my talent. I got along with people, and I could, and I'm not a dumb guy. Like I could learn a process and do that kind of stuff, but I wasn't, I didn't have a degree or something that I was an expert in. So, bounced around from that financial place. I kind of bounced around there. And did a number of jobs that they just needed me to do. And I found out quickly that, that company didn't really have a solid path. It was a startup, and they were just trying to figure things out. And they didn't have, clear direction. And so, I saw the writing on the wall there, that maybe they weren't going to do as well, but honestly, I was getting paid well, and I was just enjoying all the different opportunities I had. There was a lot of projects that were coming and going, and it felt like none of them were ever moving. And so I saw the writing on the wall. I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term position, but I just was like, I'm making good money and I'm having fun, so I'm going to do this. Meanwhile, my wife and I had purchased a home. She's pregnant with our first child, and then I get the news that the chief financial officer came into that company, said, "Can I talk to you?" and pulled me aside and said, "There's no easy way to say this, but today's your last day." And at first I laughed because I thought he was joking, and he said, "No, I'm serious. I'm sorry." And I said, "Oh, okay." So that company ended up, decided they were wasting a lot of money and they needed to downsize, and so they started letting go some people. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I left there, and they ended up having a lot of issues down the road after that. So as painful as that was, because I was making more than I should have for someone that didn't have a marketable skill set, and so it was difficult trying to get a new job after that made the same amount of money, and I was a little bummed for a while. But that company had some issues, legal issues and things moving forward, and so I'm glad that I was able to part ways there. All right. Well, sorry guys, this podcast is going a little long. I'm trying to give you my whole history, and I'm not even including everything. I just want to give you a background of everything I'm learning. But after that, I end up trying to start my first online business. This was my first side hustle. It was an online pet supply store, and I had this idea of doing this online e-commerce store, essentially coupled with some entertainment. So starting like a kids podcast, which, by the way, if you're listening and you're interested in a kids podcast, it's a great podcast. We never published it, but we have one episode, and it was awesome. But we were trying to get some of this entertainment stuff up and running, and I roped in a bunch of my friends who, quite frankly, love the idea, but no one really saw the vision and what was going on, and so it just kind of fizzled out. And I ended up investing a lot of my own money and time into it, and a few of my friends were busy with life, and I think they were like, why are we doing this? And I can talk more about that even later as well, but for sake of time today, because we're already way past where I normally spend time recording, and if that's okay with you, that's okay with me. But so that failed, and it's still on my back burner. I have a lot of good ideas with it. There's several little branches of it that I think, but during that time, that was about a year's time. I learned so much about creating websites and some online marketing. And that was right around the time, right before I left that financial company. I had my eyes open to business, to this book called "Start Something That Matters" by Blake McCoskey. And I learned so much, and I just got inspired like this. I want to own my own business. And that's when I kind of, going back to the beginning of this episode, that's kind of where I tied business into the joy I felt as an actor. I loved making people laugh and creating these great opportunities for people to have joy. And I realized you can do that through business. You can do that through a really good brand. And I just got inspired to try to start my business and get involved. And when that first little venture failed, never got off the ground. It was right before COVID. So I did make some sales, and then there ended up being all these supply chain issues, and so I could never fulfill them, and I had to refund them. And anyway, it was a mess, but I learned a lot. And as I've said in the 6 Secrets of Success, if you haven't downloaded that yet, please do. But in there, it talks about how failing is necessary. Like, life's going to be hard and we're going to fail, but and I failed at this. I'll be honest, I did fail at that business, but that's okay, because I learned so much, and I used that knowledge as a stepping stone into the next thing. So simultaneously, while I was trying to get that off the ground, I had to get another day job. I went and became licensed as a mortgage loan officer. And remember earlier I said I didn't do very good with the waitering waitering tips, because the money was all over the place. Well, I just got myself back into it again. As a loan officer, it's commission. It was up and down. There'd be 1 month I'd make $10,000, and then I wouldn't make any money for 3 months, and it was rough. And I tried that for 2 years. And during that 2-year process, my wife and I ended up selling our house and moving into my parents' basement and using the money from the house to pay off debt that we had accrued while I was trying to get this business up and running. And let me say this too: if you're in a relationship right now, sometimes you'll talk to people, and maybe the husband isn't able to make as much money as they want, or the wife or whatever. One of the couple or both of the couple are struggling, and I think there's a little bit of a mentality where the friends of whoever the individual is will look at the other spouse and be like, he needs to get to work or start pulling his weight, or she needs to, or whatever. And if you go through something like this is also another important lesson: is make sure you're going through it as a team. my wife and I we said, we are going to try this loan officer thing for 2 years, and we're going to do whatever it takes. And that meant selling the house. And so that's what we decided. We said, okay, we're going to sell the house. We're going to use that cash to pay off some of the debt, because we lived in that house for another year while I was trying to be a loan officer with very inconsistent income. During that time, my wife had our son, and we just weren't making, we weren't making a lot of money. But luckily, we were blessed to have good savings and a few different ways to be able to make it work. But ultimately, we decided to sell that house and move in with my parents in the basement. And this is kind of where life came crashing down on me. This is around the time I was 30 years old. And I had always said that by 30 years old, I'm going to be rich and I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. And here I am, turning 30 years old. I'm moving into my parents' basement. I'm $60,000+ in debt. Not even for anything cool. Like, it's not for a car or anything like that. It's like just because I was trying to live and make this career work, and I'm out of shape. I'm as out of shape as it gets for me. It was eye-opening for me, and that's kind of where I came to the realization that, okay, I don't have any marketable skills. Even as a loan officer, I tried to apply for different jobs and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, $12, $13, $15 an hour to work at a credit union or whatever. And I was like, what? Like, I need to make more than that. And they're like, oh, we got to do commission and all stuff. And I said, no, I know all this stuff. How come I'm not getting paid for what I know? And so I then end up transitioning from a loan officer into some technology. It's called a CRM. It's Client Relationship Manager, and some online marketing technologies. And I end up coupling what I knew as a mortgage officer with that technology, and ended up getting a great job with a mortgage company managing that technology. And so then I got kind of the best of both worlds, where I got a higher, base salary, because I wasn't strictly commissioned, but I also was still a mortgage person, and so I could get some commission on top of that if I wanted to, and ended up being a great opportunity. During this time, it was a great company, great boss, really champions learning and growing. And during this time, as I started getting my footing in that position and just learning a lot about different marketing technologies, and one of the first things we did when I signed on with that job for like the first week was we took a marketing class, like a course. So I was just, my mind was expanding and growing, and it was great. And during that time, I was sitting on my outside of my house, thinking, I as much as I'm learning and growing, it was just fueling me. I was like, I love this. I love learning. And it was really pushing me to download some audiobooks. I was driving kind of far to this job, which was fine because I would listen to audiobooks in the morning and on the way home. It was just super enjoyable. And I was sitting out front of my house one day thinking, here I am with a new a little boy, and at that time we had just had our daughter, and I'm thinking, like, I still have this desire to start a family business that I can share in. Well, two things. One, a family business I can share in. That was one of the number one priorities. But number two, something that, as great as this business was that I was working for, I'm still capped as to how much I can make. And so I really wanted a business that could push it even further to where anything, my family would need, I could be able to provide. And honestly, I wanted my kids to grow up knowing, like, you can be and do whatever you want. And I needed to figure out how to do that. I needed to show them by example, like, if you want to be an astronaut, then be an astronaut. Or if you want to be a dancer, like whatever it is, you can be whatever you want. I really wanted them to grow up with that mentality. And so as I was sitting in front of my house thinking about, well, the only way to do this is to revisit this business idea, but what am I going to do? This online business I tried, that failed miserably. I learned a lot, but I just don't have the time and resources to try to get that off the ground, because I think what it required would be far more than I had available. And while I was out there, I saw multiple trucks pass by and go park at a different house or whatever, like a plumbing company, an HVAC company, and like all the trucks had names on the side that was like, Joan the Jonas Boys or the Bill and Kids or whatever, like these family names. And I'm like, I got to start a family business. And that's when I had a flashback to this restaurant my family owned. And then prior to that, this little frozen dessert business. And I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. We're going to start a little frozen dessert truck, and we're going to build that so as my kids grow, they can have opportunity to work in that. So that's what we did. We end up starting a frozen dessert business that specialized in mostly Italian ice, and it's called Yummy Ice. And we end up really getting involved in that and expanding that. We've been now doing that for 2 summers. This is now the second winter. The first winter we didn't do anything. We just did it during the summer and closed down. And then this last summer we got, well, let me backtrack. The first summer we just did it out of like a tent. We did a handful of events and we did a great job. And then this next summer we invested in a large trailer. And so we were doing like every event we could, still not during the week, but mostly weekends. And now during the winter, we've been able to score a contract with another company to be a subcontractor. So they have big like expo events at these expo centers here in the area that we live. And so we're able to go in there and be a vendor. Simultaneously, I'm still working at this mortgage/technology position, and then we're just doing this on the weekend. And so one of the reasons to start this podcast is the experience that I have, again, not just learning from all these businesses I've been in and learning just even with the new young family that I have, but it's balancing, my day job that's providing the life that we are living with this dream, with this side hustle, because it's a lot of work. And, Thursday nights we're going and setting up, and my wife usually doesn't work her day job on Friday. And so she'll work these special events on Friday, and then I'll usually work all day Saturday doing the Italian ice truck. And so it's taken up a lot of time, and we're just building it. And it is difficult to balance that plus our regular job, plus the extracurricular activities with our family, with going to the gym and being healthy, because if I was pulling crazy hours during the summer, I don't feel like, sometimes I was staying up till 1 a.m. and I don't feel like getting up at 6 or 5 a.m. to go work out. So it really is a struggle. And we're going to keep pushing that. We have huge goals for that business. Now starting this podcast, I have huge goals to try to push this and really create a great community of people like you and I, that whatever your side hustle it is, whatever it is, to be able to balance and grow it together. Because although we're going to be in different businesses or have different talents or different experiences, there's going to be some basic principles that are universal, no matter what you're doing. And I think that we can all share in that and share collectively our experiences. This whole episode, I talked about all the different jobs that I've had and the experiences there and the things that I've learned. Let me share that with you. And you're going to have your own history, or rather have your history of jobs and experiences you have of things I don't know. And so let's build this community where we can feed off each other and learn and grow and see the success of each other and enjoy this journey. Because although it's difficult, anything worth having is difficult. That's just the nature of it. And that's also the best part. The journey is going to be hard, and we're going to learn and grow and have to expand and get uncomfortable. And it's awesome. We're going to enjoy it. And especially as we look back, we're going to say, sweet, this was a great experience, and we lived a great life. But that's a little bit about my side hustles and my jobs. And I know, a little bit, this is, I know I've been talking for a while, but, this is some of my history and experience. And again, share. I hope you're here joining the community and sharing your experiences and what you're learning with others as well. And guess what? This is just the beginning. Our frozen dessert business, that's just one of many things I want to accomplish. This podcast is just one of many things I want to accomplish. I want to get into real estate. I have a dream to be able to get, I still want to be an actor. I'd love to do something in the entertainment business. I don't necessarily want to be an actor in Hollywood, but I want to be able to do something that gets that creative, itch out. Like I have all these goals and it's just step by step. So whatever you choose to do, the things I choose to do that, and it's going to change. We just have to remember it is step by step. We can't do everything we want, but we can do anything we want. We just have to plan it, and we have to take the appropriate steps. Everything will come in time and in order. And I hope you would agree with that. As I mentioned, our journeys are different, but there's some things that are going to be universally the same. That is what I have compiled in the 6 Secrets for Success. If you haven't had a chance yet, go to familyhealthandhustle.com and click on that 6 Secrets for Success link. Download my free ebook. It's only 7 or 8 pages, but these are core foundational principles I think are absolutely necessary for us to embody, understand, and accept in order to step onto the path of true success. You might already be on that path, but I think these principles will make it easier as you face challenges on that path. These principles are things that we should be focusing on every day, little by little, every day. And if we make a mistake or we fail today, that's okay. But tomorrow, let's do it again. And the next day, let's do it again. So if you haven't had a chance, go to familyhealthandhustle.com, download my 6 Secrets for Success. Let me know what you think. Reply to that email, Anthony@familyhealthandhustle.com. When you get your 6 Secrets for Success, let me know. Let me know if you think there's something that should be on it. These are very basic foundational principles. It's, you're going to read it and be like, well, yeah, I get that's so true, why that's important. And if you think there's even more that should be on it, you're going to have your own foundational principles that you've learned over the years. Let me know, share that, because I think that would be valuable for everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's been a long one. I try not to make them this long. And, after a little while, we're spending quite a bit of time on my history and the things that I've learned. But after a little while, I'd love to get some other folks on here and talk about the things that they've learned and experienced as they have, as they're either on the path to success or maybe they've already succeeded and accomplished the things that they wanted to accomplish. But, I can't wait to get to that point where we're having those conversations and all of our minds are expanding and growing, and and we start doing it. We start accomplishing it and doing it, and we see the fruits of our labor. So thank you again for joining me today. I will see you on the next one. This has been Family Health and Hustle.